The Ferrari is also checked after the disqualifications from China. This is what happens before the Japanese Grand Prix. In this video, we'll examine the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile's checks in detail, analyze statements from Leclerc and Hamilton, and explore how Ferrari developed the engine's hybrid system. Before we start, if you like the videos on the channel, please leave a like, and now let's look at everything in detail. Despite being excluded from the Chinese Grand Prix standings, the two Ferrari SF, 25S of Leclerc and Hamilton were subjected to further in-depth technical checks by the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile. In fact, it emerged that Suzuka that cars 16 and 44 had been randomly selected for post-race checks as per the protocol, with a specific focus on pit stop systems and procedures. The Federation's technicians, led by Joe Bauer, inspected the single-seaters to ensure full compliance with the technical directive TD022 that regulates pit stops. A routine process decided before the event and not linked to the irregularities that caused the disqualification of the two drivers. According to the official communication from the Federation, both on the Suzuka paddock notice board and on their own website, both SF and 25S were found to be perfectly in compliance with the 2025 technical regulations. The situation is still incredible because after a black weekend with two exclusions for different reasons, Leclerc out for a kilogram of underweight and Hamilton for excessive wear of the skate under the body, a further check could seem like a persecution, but this is not the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile system. It followed the normal procedures. It would have been really surprising to find irregularities also in this last check, which however confirmed that the mistakes made in Maranello were serious, yes, but not the result of fraud. Good faith, at least that, remains intact, and therefore Ferrari passes the checks made by the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile as far as the technical directive TD022 is concerned, and therefore there is not a real persecution in this case on Ferrari, also because it would have been the height after the disqualification of China. But let's see now what Ferrari has worked on for Japan, particularly on the rear wing and also on the simulator sessions. In fact, after a double absence of points after a difficult race, that of China, the team has focused its efforts to present the best possible version of the SF25 at Suzuka. In fact, the team has intensified the use of the simulator, appropriately recalibrated after the last Grand Prix to refine the car's setup in view of the Japanese circuit. The strategy included a particular focus on both aerodynamic and mechanical components, as the interaction between the two is crucial to achieve consistent performance throughout the race. In parallel, the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile has strengthened controls on wing flexing. The tolerance of 0.009843 inches previously applied in Shanghai is no longer allowed. In addition to pre-race static checks, a dynamic check will be carried out on the footage to assess the aeroelasticity of the wings. With the risk of declaring any non-compliant solutions illegal, in recent years Ferrari has made significant strides in optimizing the flexibility of the wings, showing improvements over the past, as highlighted following Leclerc's contact with his teammates in China. Comparing the performances with those of the 2023 Mexican Grand Prix, the differences in terms of elasticity are clear, testifying to the continuous development required by new regulations. The images shared by Albert Fabrega allow us to examine the configuration chosen for the Japanese circuit. Ferrari maintains the specification already adopted between Australia and China. The second additional flap is present, but further visual details will be necessary to confirm the exact configuration. The team opts for the same load level, with the aim of having a clear view of the current technical situation. In the meantime, McLaren has adopted a higher specification, highlighted by a greater incidence of leading edges on their MCL39, while maintaining a similar frontal area. As Vasseur also reiterated, the SF25 has potential that is still unexpressed, especially in the medium speed sections. However, it remains to be seen if in the high-speed areas the Red will be able to compete on par with McLaren and Red Bull. In fact, the current configuration offers a very narrow setup window that could complicate the optimization of the fastest curves, particularly in the Snake. The first sector is the Japanese circuit, where the front setup is put to the test in the direction changes. To eliminate understeer, Ferrari is considering moving the balance further forward. However, this solution requires an adequate amount of grip on the rear, otherwise it could further compromise the management of the car. So Ferrari is considering whether to shift the balance from the setup towards the front to improve and reduce understeer, but this would then result in a much more unstable rear. So we'll see what Ferrari decides. The fact is that the rear wing is kept the same as Australia and China. Now let's listen to the driver's statements, especially Leclerc's. The Monegasque admits that Ferrari's season start has been tougher than anticipated. After 2 tough races ending with a double disqualification in the China Grand Prix, the Monegasque driver has assessed the situation and is confident in the potential of the SF25. And he stated, "It was a difficult first part of the season. The pace did not confirm in line with what we expected, and losing points has greatly damaged the team." Leclerc explained at Suzuka, "Every time you make mistakes, you learn something, especially when they cost so much. Everyone plays with the limit, but having both cars out of the ranking was a great pain. We didn't need that." Despite the Chinese disappointment, Charles remains convinced that the SF25 project has significant room for growth. The Ferrari driver highlighted the progress made in Shanghai, especially in the sprint race won by Hamilton starting from the pole. Getting the most from a single-seater is always complicated, but this season isn't more difficult than previous ones. It's just that the performance compared to McLaren is not good enough yet. But step by step, I'm sure we can close that gap. Starting from this weekend, Leclerc has reminded us that even last year, the initial situation was negative. But with the team's work, he managed to come back and compete for the Constructors' title. In 2024, after the first races, the performances were much worse than today. He stated, "Yet, at the end of the season, we were there, fighting for the Constructors' title. This year, we started better, even though we haven't maximized our potential." It's frustrating, yes, but the season is long and we can get where we want to be. One of the most debated points this early in the championship is the variability of the SF25's performance, alternating between brilliant moments and underwhelming sessions. And Leclerc also said, "I won't go into details, but we're starting to understand the car and identify the areas where we're lacking. We figured it out in Australia." In China, Lewis did an exceptional job in the sprint race, while perhaps others didn't put it all together in qualifying. He did, and he managed to push the car's limits. Then in the second qualifying, we were all closer and the car's real pace was evident. However, the most pressing issue is still qualifying performance, a problem similar to last year according to Leclerc. We have a competitive car, but starting mid-pack complicates everything, as seen in Sunday's race in China. We need to improve in qualifying. It was already a problem in 2024, but now it's even more important. And the Monegasque also dwelled on the broken wing at the start of Shanghai. It's never positive to have a broken wing, I assure you, but we found interesting clues to understand where the good race pace came from. After the sprint, we made some changes and we made a step forward on Sunday. The pace was good, but with a whole wing it would have been even better. And if, on one hand, Leclerc reassures the fans, saying that the car's potential is there and just needs to be brought out on the track starting this weekend in Japan, and also reminded of Ferrari's previous negative starts, considering that in this case Ferrari didn't start well but the car's potential is there, whereas in past years the potential wasn't there, Hamilton has focused more on his work at Maranello and reiterated that perhaps the missed tests in Abu Dhabi 2024 are weighing on the situation now. In fact, Lewis Hamilton spoke candidly on Thursday in Suzuka, addressing the issue of trust in Ferrari and commenting on the difficult weekend in Shanghai. Obviously far from controversies and external assumptions, the Englishman reiterated his total support for the Prancing Horse project. "I heard someone say nonsense, as if I was losing faith in the team. I can say I believe 100% in this team," he stated. "Sure, there was a lot of noise at the beginning of the year. Many thought we would win right away, but it wasn't what I expected. I entered a new culture, a new team, and I know it will take some time." Hamilton explained how the first few months in red were focused on listening and observation, an adaptation phase in which he learned about the dynamics and internal processes of the team. "In the last 2 months, I've observed how the team operates compared to the other 2 realities where I've worked. Last week, I took notes, I pointed out areas where we can improve, and I will continue to do so throughout the year. We will learn more and more from each other." And Hamilton also commented on the performance drop in Shanghai. "If we had left the car as it was, or if the change had turned out to be an improvement, we would probably have qualified among the top 3, but it was not so. Since I went on track for the qualifications, it was immediately clear that it would be a challenge. At this moment, I'm not yet directing my engineers as I did in Mercedes. I knew everything, from the car to the tools, but we'll get there." And this point is important because to say that he would have qualified among the top 3 with the setup of the sprint race and sprint qualifying means that Hamilton had great potential in China to fight for the podium even in the Sunday race. And then Hamilton also commented on his disqualification. "In the race, we always try to avoid the areas with bumps. Curves in Shanghai, the bottom never touched the asphalt. There were no bounces or particular signals, so I had no warning. We all know that these single-seaters are pushed to the limit on every parameter. When I was informed about the disqualification, I didn't feel frustrated. I accepted it and immediately looked ahead. I learned a lot in Maranello on Wednesday. The most impressive thing was seeing how the team reacted, how they analyzed everything and prepared for this weekend. Hamilton is very confident about Ferrari's future, and that is what really matters. Surely, right now, he's not managing the team like when he was at Mercedes. But it takes time even in the communication between his track engineer Riccardo Dami and Lewis Hamilton. It takes a bit of time to adapt the communications to find that necessary feeling that allows him to express himself at his best both on the track and in radio communications. Hamilton is certainly very positive about the future at Ferrari, and he too is convinced of the potential of the car. He reiterated this by saying that the setup of the sprint race was the right one. Even with that setup, or with an improved one, they could have made the podium on Sunday in the race.
And still,
in a period of adaptation, he has to learn a lot from Ferrari, and gradually Hamilton will get to those performances that he has also shown us in Mercedes. But now we have to see how Ferrari is working on the hybrid engine for Suzuka, the Japanese circuit. With its iconic figure 8 shape, it's a unique mix of high-speed corners, technical sections, and ideal overtaking points. But beyond the driver's talent, an often underestimated element comes into play on a circuit like this. The hybrid system's efficiency is highlighted by the Japanese track, emphasizing the power unit's qualities in the eyes of the general public. Explaining this is Mario Farina, a 45-year-old Milanese and head of Airs applications at Ferrari. Farina, who works from the remote garage in Maranello during the GPs, is one of the key engineers in managing the hybrid part of the SF25. Suzuka is one of the most fascinating circuits on the calendar, he says. It's 3.6 miles long with 18 turns. The first sector is a mix of fast turns with slopes and direction changes that put the drivers to the test, while the hairpin in the second sector is often the scene of overtakes. The final stretch with the 130R and the last chicane requires precision and courage. And the track also presents environmental challenges. The weather is often unstable and sudden wind changes can compromise the aerodynamic balance in high-speed sections. In case of rain, the variables increase even more. For this reason, technically, Suzuka requires very careful power unit management, especially the hybrid system. Farina explains the peculiarity of this track is that the driver remains at full throttle for almost 70% of the lap. Therefore, a perfect parceling out of the electric power is needed. The MGUH, which recovers energy from exhaust gases during acceleration, is more stressed than the MGUK, which works during braking. This makes the energy balance very delicate. The goal is to ensure power in the long straights without sacrificing the driven part where the traction and response of the hybrid can make a difference. And Farina has been at Ferrari since 2014, and today he is a key figure in preparing energy strategies circuit by circuit. I fulfilled a lifelong dream by joining Ferrari. At the beginning, I was directly following the air system on the track, while now I work at the headquarters where I take care of the endurance tests of the entire hybrid system. From validating deployment strategies and providing real-time support during race weekends from the remote garage. His job is crucial to maximize the performance of the power unit and allow the drivers to exploit every available watt when it really matters. It will be intriguing to compare the efficiency of McLaren, Ferrari, Red Bull and Mercedes to determine which team optimizes engine performance while maintaining aerodynamic load in the fast curves of Sector 1. But we need to talk now about Yuki Tsunoda and his adaptation to Red Bull, because he has overextended this Thursday on his simulator performance. In fact, Tsunoda stated, is the RB21 difficult? No, it's just different in the setup. To point. In fact, making a debut in Red Bull alongside Max Verstappen in the home Grand Prix is Yuki Tsunoda. The Japanese will start with the RB21 for the first time this weekend in Suzuka, after taking over from Liam Lawson, who had a disappointing start to the season with just 2 races contested. Tsunoda has already had a chance to test the car on the simulator, and his first impressions are anything but negative. In fact, the Japanese driver immediately wanted to downplay the rumors that define the RB21 as a difficult car to drive. More than difficult, I would say that the philosophy of setting the point is completely different from the racing balls. I had to change my approach compared to what I used with the V-Carb 02, but it's just a matter of adaptation, he explained. Tsunoda also analyzed the main differences between the two cars, explaining how the behavior of the front affects the feeling at the wheel. The Red Bulls tend to have a very incisive front, with a more oversteering behavior. I like cars that turn aggressively, and in the past I have adapted my driving style to this philosophy. The racing bulls, on the other hand, were more understeering, which initially made it difficult for me, but then it became normal. Now the process repeats, but with more experience. It will be important to adapt again, but I'm not too worried. I've already faced changes in driving style, and I believe I have the basics to do it quickly. The realistic goals for Suzuka remain the Q3 and the top 10 for Tsunoda. After initial enthusiasm that led Tsunoda to talk about the podium, he has lowered his expectations, adopting a more cautious approach for his Red Bull debut. Honestly, I don't think about being the first Japanese to win a Grand Prix. I know there's no guarantee of being able to take full advantage of the RB21 right away. However, being a top team car, if I learn to know it well, the opportunities will come. For Suzuka, my goals are to reach Q3 in qualifying and secure a top 10 finish in the race. It's a good start for this new adventure. I'm not currently thinking about the podium, but I'd definitely be thrilled if it happened. So, it will be interesting to see how the weekend goes for the Japanese driver in his first official race for Red Bull. Let me know in the comments what you think about the further checks done to Ferrari. Do you think it's a persecution against the Maranello team? Also, give me your thoughts on the statements of Leclerc and Hamilton and what you expect this weekend in Suzuka. Remember to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new videos on the channel. I provide daily updates on Formula 1 news, especially Ferrari-related news. Check out the related videos I've included. See you in the next Rasta Duto video.